On behalf of Senator Jason Welch and myself, my name is Andrew Roraback. I'm the ranking member on the Senate Republican ranking member on the Finance, Revenue, and Bonding Committee. Senator Welch and I are here today to talk about an issue which could not be more timely. As we know, yesterday Governor Malloy made a series of proposals to better fund our state's pension system. And nobody can dispute that our pension system is desperately in need of better funding. But better funding is not enough to get Connecticut out of the pickle we're in. If Connecticut is going to have a sustainable future, we have to change the rules with respect to our pensions. We're facing more than $71 billion in unfunded retiree obligations. And funding the system at a better level without changing the rules is not going to get us out of the woods. Interestingly, people may think that Connecticut is in the norm by having retirement benefits the subject of collective bargaining. In fact, very few of our neighboring states, if any, have that benefit. In New York, New Jersey, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, retirement benefits are created by the legislature and by the executive branch, not through a collective bargaining process. So what Senator Welch and I are here to do today, and Senator McLaughlin wishes he could join us. He has been working very hard on these issues. But what we're here today to propose is something that ought not to shake the world. Rather, it should be embraced by members of both parties and by the governor, because what we propose is to change the rules for new hires, for people who come to work for the state of Connecticut on or after July 1, 2012. They will know that they're going to be operating under a new set of rules when it comes to their retirement benefits. So quite frankly, I'm hoping that the unions representing state employees will join us in this initiative, because if we adopt this change, it will make the pension system stronger for existing state employees and prejudice no one, because new hires will know the rules under which they're being hired. Specifically, what we recommend is that we remove retirement benefits from collective bargaining for new employees hired after July 1, 2012. In addition, we propose to end the practice of pension padding for those employees, and similarly, to obligate those employees to enroll in 401k defined contribution plans for their retirement, rather than the existing defined benefit plan. We have a structure in our retirement benefits which is clearly unsustainable. A quick primer on how we calculate retirement benefits for state employees. And I'm going to focus on hazardous duty state employees because their circumstance is the one which invites the greatest level of abuse. All hazardous duty employees who retire after 20 years of service will receive a minimum of 50% of their base pay. Their base pay is computed by averaging their top 3 years. So the widespread phenomenon which people engage in is to bump up as much overtime as they can in the final 3 years of their work so that the base pay upon which the pension is calculated is high. Now, for each year you work beyond 20 years, you get an additional 2% benefit, which means if you work for 30 years, you retire at 70% of the average of your best 3 years. So when we read about nurses at the Yukon Health Center who rack up overtime of $94,000 on top of a base pay of $105,000, or when we read of the Yukon police chief retiring with a salary of $255,000 and the deputy chief retiring with a salary of $200,000, do the math. There are 381 individuals receiving pensions in the state of Connecticut in excess of $100,000. 4 of the hazardous duty workers who retired in this last wave of retirements are earning more in their base pay, earning more in their retirement than they did in their base pay. One example, the Hartford Correctional Center. One individual at the Hartford Correctional Center, 47 years old. His base pay was $55,000. His average salary for the last 3 years was $121,000. So he is enjoying, at the age of 47, a pension benefit in the amount of $65,000 a year. And he's not alone. There were 6 individuals who worked at the Hartford Correctional Center who retired in this last wave of retirements. All of them had the same base pay of $55,000, and their pensions are averaging between $49,000 and $56,000. So now is the time to change the rules. We change the rules for everyone's benefit, and I'm hard-pressed to come up with any rational reason not to adopt these changes now. And I appreciate everyone being here. We'll take questions after Senator Welch speaks for a moment to the benefits which would flow from changing to a defined contribution plan. Senator Welch, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Roraback, and I thank you first for noting that what we're talking about here is not revolutionary. We're talking about changing benefits on a going forward basis for new employees, because we're big believers in keeping promises to people we've made promises to. And shame on us for not doing that to date by underfunding our pensions to the extent we have underfunded them. But also shame on us for continuing to make promises we know we can't keep already. Again, this isn't revolutionary because it's what our sister states are doing. And by moving to defined contributions, we're talking about 401ks. That's in line with the private sector. That's in line with the moves that other states around us have done. And we think it's a very reasonable, common sense call to get our long-term financial obligations under control. Because as most of you know, depending on what survey you look at, we are, if not the worst, in unfunded liabilities in this state on a per capita basis in the country, but one of the worst, if not the worst. So thank you for your time and attention, and we'll be more than happy to take what questions you have.
And I did neglect to mention, I did say it was timely for us to be making these proposals because the governor yesterday suggested that we should better fund our pension system. What I neglected to mention was that last week, Moody's downgraded the credit rating of the state of Connecticut. And the reason they downgraded the credit rating is because they see clearly what leaders in Connecticut have failed to understand. And that is that our $71 billion in promises, we don't have the wherewithal to honor those promises. Adopting these changes will put us in a much stronger position to keep our promises. And again, nobody will be harmed because anyone who comes to work will know what the deal is. So I do hope that we'll get broad bipartisan support, that the governor will join us in making what would be a real and substantial change to a sustainable pension system.